What's up, everybody? Welcome to a Thursday edition of The Slate here as we are, I don't know. I should have done the math before we came on, Gary and Thorne. I'm Adam Kaufman, but we are hours, I can tell you that, mere hours away from mobile betting going live in the state of Massachusetts. That is my backyard. Maybe some of you out there watching as well. Very excited for that. 10 a.m. on Friday, and obviously, those of you that are listening, watching out en masse will be able to start to place bets with DraftKings on the DraftKings Sportsbook on your phone, on your mobile device. Gary, and I realize that this does not apply to you specifically, you being in Canada, not in the state of Massachusetts, but could you join in my excitement for a moment?
I'm so glad you get to do something I've been able to do for 5 to 7 years. Congratulations.
Hey, you know what? It really is just such a... I've been spending more time with the DraftKings Sportsbook than I already even did, like when we're doing these shows or the sweater, whatever it may be. Now I'm at a point just in preparation, obviously, for wanting to encourage that many more of my friends that, hey, DraftKings Sportsbook, I'm like sitting on the couch watching games and just looking at all the offerings of same game parlays and all of obviously the traditional totals and lines and spreads and all of that, but looking at props going into games. I'm thinking about it even more than I was before, and I'm not sure I fully anticipated that, but I am locked in, man.
And I am sure there will be some very, very juicy promos this weekend in Massachusetts. I know when the DKSB opened up in Ontario, we got some softballs thrown our way by the good people at DraftKings. So it's going to be a fun weekend for everyone on their phone in Massachusetts. I can say that.
Without a doubt. So for all of you that want to place your bets on, the Red Sox over win total and the Patriots to miss the playoffs and Celtics and Bruins to win their respective championships, jump in, man, get in. The time is now. But Garion, obviously, when it comes to the time being now, the time is anything but now in terms of news surrounding Lamar Jackson. I guess we should still call him Ravens quarterback because that's the direction anyway it's heading. But for anyone that missed it in the last couple of days, non-exclusive tag put on Lamar courtesy of Baltimore, which means if you do not know, he has the opportunity to kind of test the free agent waters, so to speak. He can meet with other teams. They can offer him a contract. If anybody does, and I would have to assume somebody will, then the Ravens have the opportunity to match. They probably will. I don't think anyone's going to blow them out of the water. But if they do not, 2 first-round picks will go their way. So you've had a couple of days since our last show to kind of marinate on this. And I know Aaron Rodgers is the domino that everyone is really obsessed with because he maybe has the more likely chance of changing teams this offseason. But how do you think this is going to play out with Lamar, knowing that we could be having this conversation for months?
Yeah, I think the 2 things that I've probably been thinking about the most, and one of them we did cover a little bit on Tuesday, but I think it's worth again bringing up a point that Matt LaMarca made, which was, this is going to seem a little cloak and dagger, but just with the speed that teams came out and were immediately just like, no,
Nope.
We have no interest in Lamar Jackson. There definitely seems like something fishy is going on here with the owners. I don't think it'll ever be able to be proven, but again, this seems like a very, very strong-handed reaction to the Deshaun Watson contract, to that amount of guaranteed money. And while Lamar Jackson is certainly a very different type of former MVP or, that echelon of quarterback, I think if this were Justin Herbert, we'd be having a much different conversation about the willingness of some teams to maybe hitch their wagon and give up $250 million guaranteed dollars to more of a pocket passer, more of a traditional type of quarterback, someone maybe with a better aging curve than Lamar Jackson.
Someone who has finished the last couple of seasons?
I mean, sure. He also dealt with injuries last year that affected his play for a prolonged period of time. But again, I'm talking more about like the running stuff, whatever, what may have you. There's something stinky here. And it leads me to believe that he's probably going to end up staying in Baltimore. I think Baltimore is going to get their way because they clearly wanted to send the message to Lamar. We're not going to give you the contract you want. We're not even come close in negotiations. And if you think someone's going to give this to you, we might know something that you don't, which is we've already talked to all the owners and they won't be giving you this contract. So anyway, I think he's probably going to stay in Baltimore. I think he'll be frustrated. This will be a story for the entirety of the season. However,
do you remember Deshaun Watson's deal specifically?
If you don't. Like the trade or the contract?
No, the contract.
$250 million guaranteed.
Over how many years, though?
I believe 6. But again, it was a little fishy because they made it so that the first year of the deal he played under last year was less guaranteed money, so it couldn't be like it was very odd how this whole thing went out with the Browns. And again, I've sort of come to think of that trade in particular and that subsequent contract negotiation very much in the way that I think most NBA fans look at the Rudy Gobert trade, which is you cannot use this as a barometer of things to come because it's just a ludicrous trade that one team happened to make. But again, I don't blame I don't blame Lamar Jackson for sitting there going, I should make more money than Deshaun Watson because he should. However, I think we were talking a little bit about like possible landing spots, and a lot of them got crossed off the board. If you're to believe the reporting that we heard on Tuesday, as this was all transpiring, that, we were thinking Falcons gone, Panthers gone, Dolphins look interesting, gone. The one team I keep coming back to, because the Raiders also seem like they just don't have the money, and that's like an escrow thing, and I'm not a financial guy, so just take my word for it when apparently they don't have enough money to make this happen in terms of guarantees. The Colts keep being interesting to me because if there is one owner who has sort of given the middle finger to all the other owners in the past and maybe gone another direction, it is Jim Irsay. And the Colts are a team that consistently have just run through retread veteran quarterback after retread veteran quarterback since Andrew Luck retired. If any team is going to do this, and I would still say the likelihood of this is maybe only like 15, 20%. If any team is going to do it, it might just be the Colts.
So Deshaun Watson, pardon me, average salary, $46 million based on, I'm looking at Spot Track. Okay. So $46 million on average for Deshaun Watson. But then you think about 40 for Daniel Jones. Okay. So you can fully understand why Lamar Jackson feels as he feels about his worth and what he should be paid. And obviously the hangup is more about the guaranteed dollars than it is about the overall contract dollars. And that's where the NFL gets a little funky as compared to maybe some of the other sports that we talk about and that people are fans of. But what is a reasonable guaranteed dollar amount per year? Let's just say the Ravens gave him a fully guaranteed deal. What is a reasonable contract that he should expect, not want, but expect from Baltimore? How far are they willing to go? Or do you think the Ravens just are not willing to go to a fully guaranteed deal?
I mean, again, the problem here is just when you start throwing around the money, it really does matter if this is guaranteed money or not, because
that's why I asked it the way I did.
Sure, but I'm just saying, like, to really put it into specifics here, to show people what little wiggle room we actually have. I mean, the market for a, let's say, replacement level starting quarterback has really been illustrated the past 4 days. You had, Daniel Jones might be his own thing just because he's a former first round pick and he's relatively young and he's coming off his best season. Although it is worth noting again that only 82 million of that 160 million is guaranteed. And it seems like the Giants have a pretty easy avenue to get away from Daniel Jones after the second year of that contract, should they so choose. But we just had, Geno Smith essentially signed for, over $30 million a season. Derek Carr is getting over $30 million a season. If that's the going rate for your standard run-of-the-mill quarterback, and even look, the franchise tag's like $32 million. So if that's what we're saying is the baseline level, I don't know how the Ravens don't, or Lamar doesn't look at this and say, I need to be making at least 40 million. Maybe he would be willing to take a little bit of a discount if that discount comes with fully guaranteed money. I'm not quite sure. But I think he wants some longevity too. Like, I don't think he wants just like, $100 million guaranteed over the course of 2 seasons. I think he wants to
Right.
be paid late into the 2020s. And it just doesn't seem like the Ravens are going to do that. And right now, Lamar doesn't seem like he's going to have any leverage to use against them. So it really doesn't look good for him. And he might have to cave here. But I would say if I were an arbiter and these two people came to me, these two organizations came to me, 45 million, like that's bare minimum. And if we are going to be using comparable players and comparable salaries, again, Deshaun's his own thing, but you could really make the case, and we'll see, because Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert's extensions are coming up very soon. They're about to make ridiculous amounts of dollars that reset the market, and their contracts will be structured more like Patrick Mahomes's was. But again, this all comes back to the fact that I don't think Lamar is being crazy in this. I think he's very justified in what he wants.
Let's go with that then. I mean, it has to be going through his head, especially in the wake of 2 seasons cut short. I know there was a COVID situation a couple of years ago, but obviously last year, the hurt and bench sat, whatever, for the, I guess more an injury than anything else, obviously, toward the end of the year last year. You have to be thinking, if you're Lamar, at least a little bit. I get what you're saying, and I agree with it fundamentally. You want to get paid for a long period of time. Shelf life in the NFL is short. Guarantee whatever contract you can, because obviously, money's not going to be there forever. Although maybe if you're a guy like him, you are. But what about a 1-year deal? Just a 1-year prove it deal for even maybe you can get 50 million for 1 year. Okay, 1 year fully guaranteed.
No one's going to trade 2 first-round picks to get a 1-year deal. That's the issue here. The Ravens are already paying him 32 million. So,
yeah, I guess that's true. I was just thinking, like, if he could, simply go out and have a great year and finish the year, be healthy throughout it. Not that you can definitively guarantee these things, but going in, you're in your mind. And then be right there when the market does reset for some of those guys that you're talking about.
Well, I think that's what's likely going to happen here. I think there aren't going to be any teams aside from, again, maybe the Colts, but I doubt it, just because they do have sort of like, they have their avenues that they've used before to try to like sew together the quarterback room. I think it's more likely than not Lamar is going to play on the franchise tag this season for $32 million. And if all goes well, the best case scenario for Lamar is to have another amazing season in which he plays every game and looks healthy. And then he goes into free agency where teams don't have to also forfeit 2 first-round picks on top of the guaranteed money they would have to give him. Because again, I think when you start stacking those things, I can understand that the hesitancy from some GMs, even if I still think at the end of the day, this is the going rate for a star quarterback and you need a star quarterback to win an NFL championship. That's the most likely scenario. And that's probably what's going to happen, I think. Because again, it just doesn't seem like anyone's knocking down the door right now with that need at quarterback. Who's going to be signing Lamar to a long-term guaranteed deal that the Ravens then have to get the opportunity and discuss to match. I just think I'd say I'm 85 to 90% he's going to play on the franchise tag for the Ravens this year.
Well, we will have plenty of time to talk about it and think about it, obviously, like we said, in the days, weeks, months to come. But in the time that we have left in the next, 7-8 minutes, whatever it is, let's move over to the association. It's a light slate in the NBA tonight, Gary, and just a half dozen games. Giannis has been ruled out for Milwaukee, so opens up some opportunity there for some other members of that Bucks team, such as obviously Drew Holiday or Chris Middleton. Jalen Brunson is questionable. Jordan Clarkson is not going to play tonight. Jalen Duren is probable. Walker Kessler is available despite his illness. Killian Hayes is probable despite his hand injury. So those are some of the key news and notes that have been sprinkling out throughout the day today. I've got the DraftKings Sportsbook pulled up. We'll show it to you. Again, if you're in Massachusetts, get very familiar with what this is going to look like if you haven't yet. You've got the one game, well, a couple games with bigger spreads with the Pacers favored at home, the Bucks at home, despite not having Giannis going up against the Nets. And again, Holiday is going to play. I know he's dealing with the neck injury. What stands out to you in terms of, some of these first traditional spots here, whether it's, money line total or spread, before we look at player props and DFS?
Yeah, I think my two favorite spots. I'll give one spread pick and one total. Let's start with Charlotte and Detroit. I feel like I talk about the Charlotte Hornets more than maybe anyone else on the face of the earth, which is not great. Don't wish that upon anyone. But the DraftKings Sportsbook and other books continue to just put these game totals for the Hornets really, really high. And I don't understand it. Now, granted, this is the lowest total on this slate, but I'd be willing to bet the under in this spot all the way down to like 218, 219. Like, I think there's a lot of wiggle room here in this particular matchup. The Hornets and the Pistons across their last 10 games are last and second last in the Eastern Conference in terms of offensive efficiency. Neither can score at all. I mean, LaMelo Ball being out obviously doesn't help matters for the Charlotte Hornets. However, the sneaky thing about the Hornets in that same 10-game span, they have the second best defensive rating in the entire NBA. They've been really locking down on defense. So when you have a combination like that, it's not overly surprising. The Hornets are 5-16 to the over in their last 21 games. They have been hitting the under like crazy. The Pistons, similar situation, 5-2 to the under in their last 7 games. So I just think this is a contest where even if one of these two teams gets hot and starts hitting some threes, Detroit has a pretty poor defense, so maybe that's Charlotte. One of these two teams isn't going to carry their weight. There's a very reasonable chance one of these two teams do not score 100 points tonight, which would then make it very hard to get to 225. So I really like the under in that spot. I would also be interested in betting the Knicks +2 in Sacramento. This is another sort of trend that I've been riding for most of the season, but the Knicks are just incredibly good against the spread on the road. They have actually covered 32 of their last 43 road games. They have also covered their last 6 games against teams above 500. So they've been very, very good against teams that are also very, very good. The Kings are fully healthy. De'Aaron Fox is going to be back for this game. Obviously, Jalen Brunson is still questionable for this contest, which does loom relatively large. I wouldn't blame anybody if they don't want to bet the Knicks until they have sort of definitive news on Jalen Brunson. But I would say if Brunson gets ruled in for this contest, I would expect the Knicks to move to at least a pick 'em, maybe even be favorites in this contest on the road. So I'm willing to just take them +2 right now, considering how good they've been all season long at covering away from Madison Square Garden.
So DFS, just because we only have a few minutes left, we were talking a little bit about Milwaukee and Brooklyn, and that is where the heavy ownership is going to come from in that game, whether it's Day'Ron Sharpe, Cam Thomas, Drew Holiday, Chris Middleton, Seth Curry, Bobby Portis, all going to be very heavily owned tonight. Is there a stud, though, that you would build around, or are you looking at more of a balanced lineup tonight, despite a lot of value, Garion? Because, you know, I guess I would argue, looking at the names, whether it's Steph Curry, Halliburton, Markkanen, Sabonis, Randall, obviously. I mean, Holiday is makes a lot of sense without Giannis, but in terms of the higher price guys, Halliburton's probably in the best spot.
Oh, without question. And I actually think he's in a very advantageous situation playing for a middle of the road to below average Eastern Conference team against the Rockets, because one problem we sometimes have in trusting the absolute studs against Houston is the blowout potential and the possibility that a player doesn't play even close to his normal allotment of minutes because the script just gets so ridiculous by the middle of the third quarter. I don't think the Pacers have that kind of juice. They're fine, and the Rockets stink, don't get me wrong, but I think the Rockets can keep this close enough where we see Tyrese Halliburton have to play 34, 35, 36 minutes. And this is someone who's coming off a game where he just dropped 70 DraftKings points. So I think his combination of ceiling and matchup is exceedingly nice on this slate. The only other player in this tier that I would have any level of similar exposure to, because I think Halliburton is like the stud I want to build around the most, Julius Randle. This is just a really, really nice spot against Sacramento. Sacramento, across their last 10 games, has the second worst defensive rating in the entirety of basketball. They play at a very up-tempo pace. There's a reason the Kings consistently have the highest game totals on any given slate. and it's another very high total tonight in this game against the Knicks. And really the only knock on Randall time after time is the Knicks play at an exceedingly slow pace. And you would think they're not going to change their game style entirely because of an opponent, but I think this game will have to be more up-tempo than a average Knicks game just because of the presence of Sacramento. So I think Randall's even more appealing, obviously, if Jalen Brunson ends up sitting this game out. But even if Brunson plays and maybe some of that ownership from Randall dissipates, I'd still be willing to go back to him in that situation.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to add. I'm not as enthused as you are about Randall if Brunson does play. If he doesn't, without a doubt, that's a guy I absolutely would want not even just some, but quite a bit of exposure to tonight. I will also add, and then we've got to go. Lauri Markkanen, really good spot tonight as far as one of those higher priced guys. He's not, top echelon, but obviously, mid 9K range. You got, let's see, just real quick. I was looking at some of the other value guys. Desmond Bane just continues to be a good play without Ja Morant around for Memphis. So another guy to think about. But we got to go. We got Chiefs and Commanders coming up in Simland. We know Patrick Mahomes is all set in Kansas City. Washington, that's a quarterback mystery. Maybe Lamar Jackson can go there. Gary, maybe probably not. Maybe.
I think they also said no. There was a lot of no on Tuesday. I'll have to go back and check my notes.
We're good. There's a lot of we're good. Remember, folks, this right here, my sweatshirt. You see it? Yeah. DraftKings, that logo. DraftKings Sportsbook, Massachusetts. Come back to me. There we go. DraftKings Sportsbook launching mobile, Massachusetts, 10 a.m. tomorrow, only hours away. Download it. Take advantage of the bonuses that Garion was alluding to before, so you can be ready at 10 a.m. to place that first bet. Thanks to Eamon, to Daniel, of course, Garion. I am Adam. Sweat tomorrow morning, 11 o'clock Eastern, the slate in the afternoon, when sports betting will be live and legal in Massachusetts on your mobile devices. And just so happens that you might even have a game tonight locally as well. We'll see. Bye-bye.